Welcome back, everyone, to another Harmony Outdoors podcast. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Today, we're going to be talking about chasing whitetails and longbeards, but not with weapons we normally use as hunters, but with a camera and a long-range lens. This is going to be a good one. I've been excited about this one. Privileged to have Mr. Clayton Worrell here with us today, also known as Grizhawk, for those that want to follow him over on socials. And Mr. Brandon Masters back with us today to help aid in this conversation. How you doing today, Mr. Grizz?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited to talk about this. This is going to be fun.
Brandon, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Equally as excited to talk about this. I can't wait. So many questions.
All right. So let me get this one out of the way really quick. Clayton, where'd the name Grizhawk come from?
I've only had a handful of people ever ask me that, which is kind of funny. But I went to the Minneapolis Institute of Art. I farm, which is, people find that kind of funny that I went to art school. But so I just started using that tag on like all of my art that I was doing. And where it actually comes from is from the movie Jeremiah Johnson. He always wanted a 50 caliber hawk in, and I can't think it was Bear Claw. He's, one of the famous lines is like, "What are you doing this far north?" And he's like, "Grizz." So I just put them two together, and just something fun. And shit, that was 20 years ago, and
yeah,
it's kind of stuck. So I've been using it ever since.
Yeah, there you go.
That's pretty interesting. That's one of the best movies ever made. I love that movie.
Man.
Pretty interesting.
Let's jump into a little background and inspirational conversation. Let everybody get to know you a little bit, Grizz.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and when you started photographing, and basically what attracted you to wildlife photography.
I thought about that question quite a bit, and even before you had asked me that, I think really my fascination with wildlife, basically comes from my family. I mean, we've hunted and fished our entire lives, but I mean, one thing that really sticks out is, eating around the dinner table, watching Marty Stauffer's Wild America. And I just thought that was the coolest life, is to be able to get out and videotape and photograph all these wild animals. So that's where it started. I lost track of that once you start sports and stuff like that in high school. I mean, you're not chasing whitetails or turkeys; you're chasing girls. And
right.
Once I got back on the farm and moved back to Iowa from Minneapolis, there wasn't, say this was 20 years ago. There wasn't there was not a lot of jobs in the graphic design in Iowa, and if you did, there was 1,000 people applied for it. So I went back to my roots and went back to the farm, and man, I tell you what, being on the farm is it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And I'm fourth generation and could possibly be the last. I don't really have anybody that's going to take my shoes. But being on the farm every day, I have the opportunity to, it's year-round scouting basically. So, it's really allowed me to take the avenue of photography as a artistic outlet, basically. So that's kind of how this has developed, is like I say, it's more of an outlet than anything. It's a hobby. This isn't what I do full time. I farm full time. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't have the pressure other than what I put on myself to produce images. Let's just say that. So that's why it's so much fun for me.
Yeah.
That's it,
Yeah.
man. I mean, that's a little bit of about me.
Yeah. Brandon, you got something?
Yeah. What was the moment or the experience that made you kind of start taking it seriously instead of you just said that it was a hobby, but was there a specific or a particular moment that was like, I want to do this and take it a little bit more seriously than what you maybe were when you were younger?
So, I started, when I picked up camera, started messing around a little bit. It was just here and there, but then, I got into wildflowers, and I wanted to take as many wildflower pictures as I possibly could in Iowa. But I want to take a different approach. I just didn't want to take a picture of a wildflower, just walk up to it and take it. So what I ended up doing was taking a black background and really focusing in and separating that flower. And that kind of consumed me for a year and a half. And I got over, I say 150 pictures of that. And then, which was a really kind of a fun little project. And then I kind of stalled out, just taking pictures here and there. And then a buddy of mine that actually got me into turkey hunting, he's like, well, I don't know why you don't take pictures of turkeys. So we tried it, and that was late in the spring of 2018. And one morning we had called up, I think, 5 different gobblers, and I'm like, what have I been missing? Holy crap.
Yeah.
And so the fall of 2018, I said, you know what, I'm going to upgrade my equipment, and I'm going to give this a go. And again, this wasn't for publication reasons. This wasn't for social media reasons. This was just something that I wanted to explore. This was, I want to go back to, again, this was what an amazing opportunity for, just an outlet of the day-to-day grind on the farm, and
right.
So, and that's what happened. And then let's say the spring of 2019 rolls around, and I'm having some success. Actually, probably the most successful year I've had with turkeys. But I think it was one morning I'm laying in bed, and it was like, do I want to get up? Do I not want to get up? And I just told myself, I'm like, look, if you're going to do this, let's do it. And from then on out, I mean, it's been every morning, every year I progressively have gone out more and more. I think this year I probably went out around 40 sometimes in the morning. And that's a long streak, or 2.5 months every day. Barring rain, I went out every day. And I say it's just something that it's addictive, and you put the time in, and eventually it's going to pay off. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting to hear that you came from, I guess, more nature scenes or photography. It's kind of neat to see that you transitioned from that to begin with. So, and I find, what little bit I've done it, it seems like every photographer kind of has the niches that they work on for just a little while, and they let it run its course, and then they transition into something else. I've caught myself doing that also. So that's pretty neat.
I feel like, it's, when you're growing up in the hunting world, and, you're always like, oh God, why didn't I think of that? Or, man, I wish I would have jumped into doing this, at the right time. And I feel like with turkey photography, I feel like I jumped into that and started that at the right time.
Me and you had that conversation
it's just
about a year ago.
Yeah, exactly. It's just you're just fortunate enough that I feel like it's grown in such popular, and it's always been popular. It's just not anything that I was ever aware of. And then I jumped into it, and I just felt like it's exploded in the last couple of years. And I'm glad I was there at the beginning of that explosion, I should say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good time to be a turkey photographer. After 2020, turkey hunting blew up. It really did.
Exactly. Yeah, man.
The content to come with it is so important. So
yeah.
So, tell us about some techniques that you use to capture these guys in their natural habitat.
Well, so I really,
because you've got some pretty cool and unique shots. So tell us.
I really believe that the scouting should be your foremost tool. Not to rush anything. If I'm going to photograph whitetails, I'm going to spend probably 2 weeks. There's another part of this, but I'll spend 2 weeks learning their patterns, figuring out where they're going to come out, what time they're going to come out, and then the most important thing about when I'm going to go in and try to photograph that is the wind. If the wind isn't right, I don't go in. And I believe wind is the most important factor when deciding when you're going to go in and take a picture. Also, I'm fortunate enough that I'm around on the farm year round. So, I mean, I can watch them in the mornings. I can watch them in the evenings. I mean, I can see them. Hell, I can see them out my back door, so
Yeah.
it's, or as my wife would call it, the front door. We're just backwards on that, but, but so, I mean, just saying, it's just, I think the scouting is the most important part if you're going to try to get in and photograph deer, especially big deer. Turkeys, I think it's a little different. I think you just got to know where they're at and just get in and do it. The only thing I can tell you about turkeys, which you got a lot of questions about, I can branch off on this in many directions, but with turkeys, the next thing is light. You can get up there in the morning, but if you don't have the light and they're done, they move on before that sun comes up, you wasted your time.
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, I have to set up where I think they're going to go or where I think I can get them to come to. And you're talking maybe 20 minutes difference between where they fly down to where they're going to go. And you just hope that they cooperate. And, it feels like 90% of the time they don't, but hey, you got to play the odds, right?
Yeah. It really makes you appreciate the times that it does work out. You're
exactly right. You're exactly right.
Do you call to them any while you're photographing?
Once, so I use decoys because I want to, if I can get them birds to come in, I want them to stay as long as possible. Once they have committed, and you guys know, when they've committed, I'm done calling. The only time that I will call again is if maybe they've lost the interest and they're walking away. I might try to get a shot gobble or just anything in them last few moments before they leave. I'll throw a call out just to see if I can get some kind of reaction. And sometimes those reactions, whether it be a gobble or just their head up and looking at you, if I can get a good photograph of that, and let's just say, for example, I get a photograph of, I putt to them and they know it's, with my calling, they know it's not real. So they're going to turn, they're going to look, and they're like, I've been busted. But I'll tell you what, if I take a photograph of that, you and, both of you guys resonate with, okay, I've been busted. You can see that picture and that, what that expression is on that turkey. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Absolutely. So, and I guess you being on the farm, especially deer, I'm sure you get to see them and scout actually while you're out on the tractor doing work also. So, I mean, every little piece plays into it.
Yep, absolutely.
So
my grandpa used to drive his tractor to the deer stand because they were so used to it from doing chores. So,
Hey, that's a smart idea. Idea. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the land, it lays out a little bit different from where you're at, according to where we're at. But what are some of the challenges maybe that you face on a consistent basis when trying, to get specific poses in your mind?
I would say that the biggest challenges are, I think I got a list of 4 of those. You got bugs. You get them little black flies that just drive you nuts. And mosquitoes are horrible this year. So bugs are horrible. Nothing will ruin a turkey photo shoot faster than a coyote. So I got that. And then, being in the farming community, and I mean, we're out away from a lot of people, but you still got, I've had numerous blown deer photo shoots this summer because of guys just driving their 4-wheelers around and checking crops or, setting up trail cameras. So that kind of stuff happens. You can't avoid it. And, what do you do? It's their property, So those are probably the 3 biggest factors that play into, then you got some weather. I don't know, but the previous 3 are the biggest problems that I have trying to get some pictures.
Yeah.
So, Clayton, again, like you said, a lot of those you can't really help. You just got to try to make lemonade out of lemons at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you got a guy that's coming around driving his 4-wheeler, I mean, sometimes it works in your favor. Sometimes they bust stuff out and it comes right past you, and sometimes you got to tell yourself, all right, So let's say the sun sets at 8, they're driving around 7:30. You know, what the hell? You got another half hour. Let's just set it out, or let's see what happens. And sometimes it works.
Mm-hmm.
So you just I guess just don't get excited about it. I mean, hell, you've already spent. I mean, for me, if the sun sets at 8 or 8:30, I'm already out there somewhere between 5:30 and 6. I've already spent 2 hours. So what's another half hour? And
that's right. That's right.
Plus, when you're there, I guess you got to be opportunistic. I mean, so maybe you don't see a deer, but hell, maybe a coyote does come in, or maybe there's a bird comes and lands beside you. I mean, at least grab something.
Right.
Make it work pretty well.
Yeah. Feel the same way.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about preparations for your shoots when you go out. What gear do you always bring with you? And you can even talk about what gear you use, camera wise, lens and stuff like that.
So I'm gonna tell you what I've learned over the last couple of years. The most important thing for me to have is an extra set of batteries, because there'll be, I don't know how many times that I've carried all my gear in, go to turn my camera on, and it's already on. So and my batteries are exhausted.
Been there.
Let me tell you, when you don't have them extra batteries and you've been waiting all day to go out, man, that is a horrible feeling. So I always take extra batteries, and probably my most important thing that I have with me is my tripod. I mean, if you want them clear shots, you've got to have a tripod. I have taken a lot of photos with handheld, but my confidence isn't there. And, I don't know what it weighs, but I'm telling you what, I mean, if it weighs any less than 5 pounds, I'd be shocked. And, I'm a fairly big guy, and holding 5 pounds up, trying to not move it's not the easiest thing in the world.
Right.
So when for whitetails, I run a Sony A99 and a 500 millimeter prime. And the reason I went with Sony is because I started off with a Minolta, and Sony converts right over to Minolta, or Minolta converts right over to Sony. So that's where I started. And so I've just kind of upgraded all my stuff since then. When I go looking for turkeys or photograph turkeys, I'll take the 500 millimeter prime, and then I have a second A99 body, and I take a 300 millimeter prime. And this year was the first year I've done that, and I was surprised how much I switched back and forth between them two cameras. In fact, I took my stepson for youth season his first year, and we called in 2 birds, and they were so close that I could barely get them into frame with my 300 millimeter. So, which is not a bad thing, but
right.
And that's another thing too about that is when you go back and you look at those photographs, you're like, God, this wasn't 100% in frame, but that's where I actually found that picture. I don't know if you saw the picture with that turkey. It's just his head with the breath.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so close that's how I found that picture. Just going back through, I'm like, oh crap, this is something that I kind of want to have a David McLeith photograph, and that's I say it's kind of cool to go back and see that stuff.
Yeah. Is there any reason why you use a longer focal length lens for deer than turkey?
So with turkey, I like to be, 25 to 30 yards is where I will set my decoys up.
Okay.
But with whitetail, you can do all the scouting you want to, and you can know exactly where they're going to come out. But I still like to be, 40 to 50 yards away. If they come closer, great. But I just like that longer focal length, because I really like to, being in Iowa, I like to take photographs that represent Iowa. So with whitetails, that generally means soybeans. And if they're in a soybean field, that usually means there's corn in the background. And I like to grab as much of that as I possibly can. Be it
land of the
pride
giants,
or homeland, home pride. I don't know what it is, but I just,
it's interesting.
And My 500 millimeter, I mean, it's in my truck all the time. I don't go anywhere without that because you'd be surprised how many whitetail pictures I get off the road doing chores in the morning. So
Is
that
that
little
is
extra
that a
link,
Sony lens?
it is a Sony G Master 500. So
Okay.
yeah, it's it's a 4.0 desktop.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think we've actually seen some pictures along the way. You got a like a sandbag that you put over your windowsill.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I know I've seen a picture of you one time. It looked like they had taken a picture of you and you were shooting out of your truck window
Oh,
with the
I took that
sandbag
picture.
over
Yeah, I
the,
took
the
that picture.
windowsill. Heck yeah.
He took
Heck
that
yeah.
picture of himself.
So it was the funniest thing, right? So I don't think that was not last year, but maybe the year before. I was just going to go up and we were, just had kind of an off afternoon, and I thought I'd just go up and just check and see if I could get some deer coming out of this certain bowl. And took my daughter with me, and she fell asleep on my lap, and I actually took my camera and I just took a picture. And immediately when I took that picture, I'm like, oh shit, this would be a good picture for the Diverge contest.
Yeah.
So luckily
absolutely.
I had my second camera, and let me tell you, that was a struggle trying to get a tripod set up. It was my wide angle lens on the passenger side shooting back at me with no remote, no wireless remote. So I literally had set up a 2-second timer, try to get back.
Yeah.
Look, I was taking a picture, and it took a little
All
bit of
without
time.
trying to
She
wake your
didn't fall
daughter up.
asleep, but it worked out, and I was like, I love that picture. It's one of them.
We'll have to get
quick
that
things.
one to put in here to show everyone. That was I remember that one vividly. Pretty
Yeah.
So most of those pictures that you see of people, I got one other guy I photograph a lot, but most of the time, if there's a guy in the photograph, it's me and I'm taking the picture, which is a whole other spectrum of trying to figure out how to do that kind of stuff. And
Absolutely.
It's a lot of fun, but it can be very frustrating. Almost as frustrating as turkeys, but
turkeys can be frustrating for sure.
Yeah. So Grizz, do you have a particular shot that kind of stands out in your mind that you struggled with, or something about it was extremely difficult that you were in the end glad that you put forth the time? You have any of them that stands out as extremely difficult?
You broke up a little bit, but I think you're talking about an image that was extremely difficult to capture. Is that what?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So I thought about that,
correct.
and I was thinking about that question, and I'm like, wow, I don't know if I have. And then it was like, the elephant in the room. It's the photograph I have of the turkey in the shed. And so I'm going to go back to your question: is when did I start taking the photography seriously? And say, go back to the fall of 2018, going into 19, knowing that I wanted to take. I'm going to jump into this, and I'm going to see what I can do. So, I really believe in writing lists of shots that you want to take and coming up with concepts. And that picture is a concept that I come up with in, say, the fall of 18. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I mean, we've all seen pictures of turkeys. We've seen thousands of pictures of turkeys. What is going to make an image stand out above the rest? And to me, I wanted to take a photograph that I've only seen in paintings. So I had a set of these sheds that, I don't know, I think the deer was around 180 inches. I had both sides. So I'm telling you, for 3 months, I carried them sheds out and I placed them on both sides of my set with my decoys. I separated them out so you'd have that separation shot. So if that turkey came in, you didn't have the decoys in it, you only had the shed. And I had set on both sides. And I can't tell you, I said for 2.5, 3 months, I carried them in every morning. And it was literally one of my last outings. And this turkey comes in perfectly. And I don't know, I probably grabbed 50 photographs in the morning. And I mean, it was just the background, the lighting, everything was perfect. And it was just like, it was this, this huge sigh of relief of something that I've worked so hard to capture had finally come to fruition. And I kid you not, it's one of the very few pictures that I have taken that you can look at the raw as opposed to the edited, and there's hardly any change in it. I mean, I didn't have to do anything. Everything was just perfect on it. So that was the hardest picture that I've had to take, or I've worked to take, I should say.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Beautiful picture.
And most photographers can appreciate, all that, because there's so many things that have to line up, not only just to get the shot, but your lighting has to be pretty close, if not spot on, when those kind of opportunities come. So it's nice to hear the passion and the drive that you kept for 2.5 or 3 months to get to that point. That's awesome.
I'm so goddamn happy not to carry them in anymore.
I wouldn't know what 180 shed looked like, or probably 5 pounds.
I mean,
a piece.
I think that the initial shock of it was like, oh my god, you got a picture. And then I think people did realize it's like, man, I don't think anybody just sets up in the dark and then when the sun comes up, there's a huge shed just sitting in front of them, right? I mean, so. Right. And so, to be honest, when I took that picture and I looked in the back of my camera, I'm like, holy shit, this is going to be my first publication. Yeah. And to this day, it's never been published. And I have reached out to some publishers that I talked to, and I'm like, why? And just in your honest opinion, why has this picture never been chosen for a publication? And basically the response was, it's like, it just doesn't seem real. And I get that, right? I get that part. And so I'm not upset by it.
Yeah.
But
so don't be creative
for me. I mean, it's kind of that picture is pretty much what started to make people somewhat interested in my work. So
yeah,
right.
I remember the first time seeing that picture on socials, and we get all the time, hey man, your camera takes great pictures. I'm sure you hear that a lot, man. You got a great camera. Your camera takes great pictures, but what people don't realize what goes into it to capture the things that we capture.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's way more than you just got a good camera, know. So.
I've had people like, do you use your phone? Yeah, I use my phone to take these photographs. My $15,000 phone.
There you go. Yeah.
As one of my buddies at work was talking about that his wife does some photography, and he said, yeah, my oven cooks a really good casserole too. Oh me.
There you go. That's funny. Funny. Grizz, let's talk a little hunting. In the spirit of deer season, tell us a little about your buck you harvested last year. I know it was definitely a buck of a lifetime.
Yeah. That's that deer was a classic case of just listen. Listen to what people say, see what comes of that deer being around. So here's how it started. I got a buddy that traps. He was running a trap line, calls me in the morning, says, hey, there's a pretty decent buck over here across from decent. Somebody's house. And he's like, are you around? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there in 10 minutes. He's like, okay, well, I gotta leave. So I go over there, and I mean, this isn't a decent buck, right? I mean, this is a monster. And and I got a lot of pictures that morning, but nothing decent at all, because we had a doe, or he had a doe that was hot, and he wasn't going to leave that doe. And so I pulled in, get my camera up, I take a couple pictures, but it's him walking away. And so I know he's going to jump out of this bowl. So I back my truck up, I go over, I cut him off. Here comes the doe. She comes out, and then he comes out and just darts across the field chasing her. So I back out another drive out of the field entrance, and I go to the last field entrance. I pull in there, and he's 15 yards from me, coming hard. I never had a chance for a shot. He turns around and runs back to where he originally was. I grabbed one shot of him jumping, and like I say, it's not the greatest picture in the world, but you can tell he's pretty decent. A nice buck. So I end up posting this on social media because I'm like, well, I'm not going to hunt this deer. And
now, when you say shot, you mean
never see this deer again,
camera
right?
picture, right?
Yeah. So the next thing you know, I start getting text messages. I get phone calls. These people are seeing this deer. And I mean, after so many text messages and so many phone calls, you realize that he's been there the whole time. He's in his home range.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, so then it becomes a little bit more serious, especially since we're probably, I'm going to say, 2 weeks away from shotgun season. And so it's just constantly coming in. I'm starting to get trail cam pictures from that people have sent other people, and then they made their way to me. And I'm like, okay, we've narrowed it down. So Dad and I said, okay, we're going to hunt one of the farms. Well, the farm that we saw, I took the picture on, was our farm. And so I have permission to hunt, let's call it the north side of the road, and then our property's on the south side of the road. So Dad hunts. Okay, so 2 days before season, a guy calls and says, I just seen the biggest deer I've ever seen. I can't even tell you how many points he's got on your property. I'm like, okay, so we're 2 days before season. He's still there. There's a pretty good chance that this could happen.
Yeah.
And so I go to the north side of the road, opening day shotgun. Dad hunts the south side. And I end up leaving early. I had my nephew with me. And he ends up shooting a nice 8-point, and we drive out, and we're just sitting there talking to the guy that owns the property that I'm on. And but I can see the property my dad's sitting on. I can see this big buck go over top the hill and down into this draw. And we waited, and finally Dad comes out and says, I had him at 50 yards, but he was standing in brush. I couldn't take the shot. Okay, so he's still there. Next day rolls around. Okay, so Dad and I both hunt our property. Never seen him. Third day rolls around, and let's see, is it 4 days? Is it a 4-day shotgun season here? I think it is. I can't remember. So it's rolling around 1 o'clock, and I told Dad, let's go, right? I mean, we've got basically today and tomorrow to kill this deer before second season starts, and somebody's going to get him. And Dad's like, I don't know, it's too nice of a day. I think I'll go tomorrow. I'm like, well, I'm going to go. And I go down and get in my tree stand, and I'm actually videotaping on my phone this little 8-point chase this doe around, and I hear some commotion in the timber, and here he comes out, and I'm just like, holy shit, I wasn't 100% sure it was this deer. I mean, when this deer comes out, he had his head up, and he's palmated enough on the bottom. It just looked like 2 big baseball bats coming on top of his head, and I was like, regardless of this deer, if this is him or not, I'm shooting this deer, right? And he's only 50 yards. And I pull up. I mean, it's one of them deals where he was big enough where I wasn't going to mess around, right? I'm not going to let him get sideways. Or broadside. I'm not going to I put it right on his right here, pull the trigger, dropped him. And I was like, until I walked up to him, wasn't sure what that deer was. And when I walked up, man, I'm like, well, I mean, I don't get excited too much about whitetail hunting anymore, but let me tell you, I got a little buck fever on that once I walked up to him. I mean, it was wild.
That's awesome.
How it come together so quickly. And I say it was one of them times where you just listen to everybody give you all the information they shouldn't, and
there you go.
It's on our property.
Worked out in your favor.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's awesome.
It was one of them things too where we decided, kind of beforehand, it's like, if we get a chance to shoot this deer, let's just keep it under wraps for a couple of days. Let's let first season finish. Maybe people's thought that this deer is still out here. We'll save some younger bucks for next year, because the second they know this big buck's dead, they're just going to shoot the first thing that walks by. So nobody's going to pull it out. So we waited. I waited a day, but man, let me tell you, it was hard. And finally, I was kind of wait. It was one of them things I didn't expect from my dad, but he's like, gave you the go ahead. He's like, I don't know, man. I would just, you shot it. It's a hell of a buck. I'd tell people. So it was the last day of shotgun season, first season. And I'm like, yeah, look what I got. There was I made a quick video of all the people, or Allie did too, all the people showing up and they wanted to see it.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was cool. It was her birthday on top of it. So, Oh, yeah. So I shot that deer, and we were going out for dinner, and she's like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about this deer all night long." And I said, my buddy was texting me a message. He's like, "What's the deal with this deer?" I'm like, "I'm not supposed to talk about it." He's like, "What else could there possibly be to talk about?"
She was over it.
Yeah, she was over it. I told her it was her birthday party. Everybody's showing up for it. But,
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So a question I guess that I had kind of thought of before this, which would you rather hunt, deer or turkey? What's your favorite to hunt? What's your favorite animal to hunt?
I'm going to go. That's a kind of a tough question. I'm going to lean towards deer hunting, which my plan is not to really do a whole lot of deer hunting anymore. I'd really like to just, when I have the opportunity to go out and just photograph. I don't want to sound like an asshole, but I've shot enough big deer. I've got enough big deer on my wall. I really don't need any more. I'd rather spend my time photographing them in hopes that how I've been doing the last couple of years is kind of, building a history with these deer and watching them grow. It's a lot more fun for me. And to be honest, what you probably think is weird, I don't care if I shoot a turkey every year. By the time season rolls around, I've already spent a month and a half out there chasing them. And with the lack of turkeys, we can take two in Iowa. Rarely do we take two turkeys. The group that I hunt with or my buddies, we just shoot the one turkey. And to me, I don't really care if I shoot a turkey, but I do enjoy going on hunts with friends and family. I really do enjoy that. So I don't know. I'm getting to the age where it doesn't matter, I guess, if I shoot anything anymore. Right. I will continue to shoot does. I enjoy the hell out of venison. So I'll probably shoot one or two this fall, and they eat our corn anyway. So. And always.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, if awesome. It wasn't for the eating, especially with turkeys.
I'll say this. I said the same thing last year. I said I'm not going to go out hunting, and 3 sets in, I shot my biggest bow buck at 174 inches, and then hunted 3 more days and shot a 204-inch whitetail. So I had the best year of deer hunting when I said I wasn't going to do it. So this year, I'm really trying to stick to my guns.
There you go.
And do the bare minimum.
I'm not going hunting, but look, I just shot a 200-inch.
I tell you, man, it's hard. I don't think about deer hunting all the time of year. But I tell you what, when you get that first crispy morning, it's like, I might go sit in my tree stand. It's ingrained in you. You can't help when you've grown up and you're raised doing it. You cannot get rid of that feeling when that first snap hits, man.
Sure. Kind of hard not to hunt a 200-inch whitetail when one's around. For sure.
Wow.
Well, did I answer your question? I think so. I'll probably just pick deer hunting just because it's.
You most definitely answered it, and I've seen the same things I've kind of been saying the last couple of years to Brett, that I'm to the point to where I've had enough success that I'm good. It's more about seeing other people, for me, have success and have those opportunities. So
absolutely, I started hunting with my nephews a little bit, taking them out when I can. I said I got Allie's son is 8 years old, taking him out and doing that stuff. It's just more. It's almost it is. It's more enjoyable being able to pass down and teaching them all the stuff that you learn, was passed down from your grandpa and your dad. When you get that age, becomes the fun part of hunting.
Yep. Yeah. We talked a little bit about this before the podcast, Grizz, but just real quick, in your opinion, photographing the animals that we hunt like we do, I think you've kind of already answered this, but in your opinion, does that make you a better hunter?
Absolutely. I believe that 100%. And so here's, I was thinking about this. I was sitting in a fence row the other day, and this is going to answer, I think, one of your other questions too. But
It's all right.
What your question is, one of your questions was like, what do you do to pass the time? And I think these kind of go hand in hand. So, man, I love watching and reading nature. So I'll go back to, so I'm sitting in this fence line and I've got a couple birds that are in this tree and they're just making this racket. And, normally you would just think, oh, God damn, they're annoying as hell. Why won't they just go away? Well, turns out, you're too close to, I'm sure they have a nest or something there. So they're making this racket. And so when they're making that racket, when you're thinking this is annoying, you might have a deer that's 2 rows bedded down in a corn rows thinking, what are them deer or what are them birds making that racket for?
Sure.
They've survived by reading other nature or, other animals and birds and stuff like that. So it's like, to me, it's like, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to move away from this because if they continue to do this, it immediately draws attention to where I'm at. So I really do enjoy just sitting there and reading all the signs. If a doe comes out and she's constantly looking back or she snaps her head, I mean, you want to look in that direction. So I do believe that sitting there and taking the time to read all the signs and watch what they're doing, again, without the pressure of hunting, you learn so much more. And then you can take that and then you can put it into, move that over into the hunting skills that you learned. And so to answer your question, then also like, what do I do to pass the time? That's what I do. I like to just observe. I like to observe everything, whether it be the birds or the squirrel or whatever, deer.
Yeah.
I just enjoy observing that. And, I do take a lot of notes too. I'm forever just kind of like, if I'm sitting there and there's not a whole lot going on, it's like, what would I enjoy taking a picture of? And they say I make a list of things that I'd like to capture, in my time as a photographer. And other than that, man, I've sat in some places this year that were absolutely beautiful, and it's just good to take in the scenery.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think Iowa's flat. We're on a river bottom, and man, we got rolling hills, and you get up on top of one of them hills, you can see for miles and just rolling timber, and it's just pretty. I'm very fortunate to live in the area of Iowa that I do, and if
It's
all
interesting.
else fails, I will get my phone out and I'll play on my phone for a little bit. But
yeah,
but
it's interesting.
It's
interesting that you were talking about that with the birds making the noise. I set my daughter up a spot to photograph some deer here on our property, and we have a local squirrel that'll literally get right over the blind and start barking.
Yeah,
and the deer know. So I thought that was interesting that you said that, because when the squirrels start barking right over, the deer, they know, and so they just.
I mean, they're so used to
cut out.
Those are the things that they listen for. I mean, whether it be a crow, I mean, they're forever. That's how they have survived for as long as they have, because they're listening to everything that's going around. So I mean, I think
agree with that.
You just take the time to absorb that. Hell, you're out there anyway. You're if you want to be a wildlife photographer, you want to be in wildlife, or you want to be in their surroundings. So you might as well take everything in and learn as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Brad, I'm going to let you talk about the post-processing, because that's more your speed than it is mine.
Yeah, so what role does post-processing play in your work? You don't really have to go through like an edit with us or anything.
No,
but,
I won't do that. I believe that, Brett, you and I are the same. I mean, we like them dirty, moody pictures. I really, I love that stuff. And I think it's completely objective. It's however you feel you want your pictures to look like. And I mean, I'll tell you what, I'll find a turkey. Exactly. It tells a story. And if I find a turkey, where I'll do my moodiest pictures and more are with turkeys. I don't know. To me, it fits them. I don't do a lot with whitetails. And you had commented on a couple of my pictures and you asked why this is more natural. And so I will do with like a turkey photograph. I will do what I like, which is that moody, dark feeling. but I'll also do a natural. And the reason I do that for the turkey and the deer is basically for publication submissions. That's what I feel they want. And I mean, if you flip through a magazine, it's pretty cohesive. And then let's say you throw in one of your pictures or one of my pictures, it's going to stand out because they're dirty. You know, they have the feels.
Yeah.
So, I think it's just completely subjective. It's however I think that's how people should approach it too. I mean, you do what makes you happy. You know, however if you edit it to how you felt when you took that picture or what, that's completely up to you, and that's your right to do that. And it doesn't matter, you know? So, when I do, let's call them portraits, which would be like me in the grain bin. I got my nephew and a lot of this stuff goes with like what I would enter into the Diverge contest. They're a little bit more moody, and I think that's how I envision them looking. It's how it felt when I took that picture, and I think it's more dramatic with that kind of post or with that editing. So that's how I choose to do certain images that way, and say to do the natural the other way.
Yeah. I find
it's a. Go ahead.
Tag your.
We got a little bit of lag going in here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm the one that's lagging. We apologize. Only so much internet, but I was going to say that I found it really intriguing how it's several that you've done, but how you use kind of what you're calling portraits, or the one with the buck that you killed, how you're showing that lifestyle. When you had it strung up in the barn, and like the barn itself tells so much of a story just because it looks like it's been there for 4 generations. Yeah, and so
that is one of my favorite pictures. I love that picture. I mean, I have that written down as a picture that I kind of want to talk about. So, I had been in that stall so many times, and I looked at that stall and I'm like, I want to use this stall. What can I use this stall for? It's just, it's cool. And the lighting is good. And when this was my bow deer that I had killed, it just dawned on me. I'm like, there's been deer hanging in this barn, in that stall since I was a kid. What better purpose for that stall than for me to recreate an image of what I remember as a kid? And when I originally started taking that picture, Logan, the foot on the head, we just did that t-shirt together. And I thought, I'll go down and I'll take a picture with that t-shirt doing that. And the second I took my first picture, I was like, I'm keeping it. These are mine. I'm going to use these for something different. Sorry, I'll figure something else out for you, right? And it's like, I have no worries, right? So I went, I just went and grabbed a flannel and a Sitka a flannel, because it's like, okay, this is going to be a Diverge entry. This is going to, if I don't win, this is ridiculous, right? And so I start doing it. I get the picture I like. I absolutely love it. Like, I'm sitting on the couch, like, ask my wife, I was like, what do you think of this? Like, this is good, right? And she's like, yeah, it's awesome. And then, but then, the longer you look at it, right? You start picking it apart. And I'm looking at it, and I realized a huge mistake that I had made in that photograph, which was having the body cavity open. And I'm like, the picture's great, but I don't know how usable it is because of the body cavity being open. And I reached out to, some members of the Sitka staff, and I'm like, honest opinion, what do you think of this? And they're like, body cavity. I'm like, that's what I thought. So, fortunately for that picture, though, I entered into the NWTF contest and it won. So it all worked out in the end, and it got recognized, and it was published, and I'm grateful for that. I mean, just because that picture meant a lot to me. The funny story about that picture is when I got done taking that picture, I ended up throwing my back out, hoisting a goddamn deer up for half hour. I couldn't hardly walk for 3 days, man. Let me tell you. So there is, there's some sacrifice going into getting those images that you want. But holy crap.
Yeah. Well, you could tell. I could tell from the picture. Again, we were kind of on the tab of just, how do you tell stories with your picture? And like there's so many stories that tells, and sheer brute strength was one of them. So it responded that way to me. So that's pretty cool.
That's a big deer
that
you were hoisting up.
Yeah, I got pictures of him on my shoulder, just trying to get him a little bit higher. But it's like, what I want is, I want the motion, move. I need movement is what I need in this photograph.
Right.
So, I feel like I captured that. And I was really proud of that photograph. And again, it's got that dark, dramatic look to it. And I fell in love with that picture immediately. It's one of my favorite pictures that I've taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump down to another section. What if there's anybody out there watching this, that's thinking about getting into wildlife photography, or even some younger people that may find some interest in this, what's some advice that you would give for someone just starting out, and maybe any common mistakes beginner wildlife photographers should avoid making? If that makes sense.
If you're starting out, I'm going to tell you what I did starting out. I first of all, learn your equipment. Learn what your camera is capable of doing. Learn the ins and outs of it. I think that once you graduate from shooting in automatic mode to manual mode, it's a whole different ballgame. And you're going to realize how much better the quality of your pictures are. So I'm going to say, learn your equipment. Secondly, I had interest in wildlife photography, and I have interest in portrait photography like I've been doing. So I read nonstop. I bought books and read on how to do some of this stuff. And then I watched video after video on YouTube of, what people were doing and how to do stuff. I mean, the amount of information that's out there is endless. And so I really spent, going back to that fall of 2018, I spent all fall like learning and reading and watching videos. And then I started reaching out to photographers. And let me tell you, I was blown away by their willingness to help.
Really?
So, I'll name drop here. So I reached out to like Lance Kruger and Matt Hansen, and let me tell you, those guys have been phenomenal. I mean, they've helped me out so much. I just never would have expected that, in a competitive, I guess, area of this. I just couldn't believe that they would, people were willing to help. So, I get questions all the time, and I told myself that I will answer any question anybody ever has towards photography, and they can ask me anytime they want to, and they can ask me as many questions they want to, because if it wasn't for specifically those two guys, I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't be where I am at as far as quality of photographs I'm able to take. It was just, like I say, I was blown away, and it was just awesome. I really truly believe there's a community out there, and I have not run across one person that if I see a cool picture on Instagram or on social media, I'll send that photographer a message like, hey, what did you, how did you do this or that? And I've always got a response back like, hey, try this, do this and that. So I've never had one person say, get bent, try it yourself. So, I'll help anybody that has any questions or whatsoever.
So give us an example. Like, say you reached out to Lance for a specific topic or question or a shot that he took, and give like an example of what he told you, like, to just help you.
You're gonna believe this, but I asked him about how to get published, because once I started kind of accumulating some pictures that I thought was started off as a hobby and something fun to do, I was like, okay, this goes back to a second part of growing up as a kid. Is like, man, I went through every wildlife magazine and hunting magazine, and I didn't read anything. I just looked at the pictures. I loved them. So I thought, well, and now I want, my next goal is to be published. And I asked Lance, how do you do that? And I kid you not, he sent me like a 2-page handwritten, or 2-page email of this, where he started and what he did. And I followed those. And that, I mean, it was within that year, I had my first publication in Iowa Outdoors. And he's like, start local, which I did. I went to Iowa Outdoors, the DNR magazine, and boom, I got in contact with their editor. And next thing you know, I got a picture published. I'm like, holy crap. So, just for him to spend the time to do that was,
sure.
I mean,
huge.
It was awesome.
Huge.
So,
yeah.
And, we talk back and forth, I mean, I feel like right now, I feel like one of my biggest supporters is Matt Hansen, which is awesome. I mean, he's one of the best wildlife photographers, but also, I mean, his whitetail pictures are amazing. And, my aspirations are to be, when it comes to, I'm just going to narrow it down to turkeys. Like I want my name to be mentioned, among them guys, Lance Kruger, Matt Hansen, Jay Lease, Tess. I mean, that's my aspiration, which answers one of your questions: is where do I see my photography going, or what do I want from it? Like, I mean, I kid you not, I joke around with some of my buddies, like, I'm not going to stop taking wildlife or turkey photos until like my name is synonymous with turkeys in Iowa. It's like, that's where I want to be. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Now, those are definitely good aspirations and good goals. So, and I mean, for what it's worth, your name's there. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, all the top names that you've thrown out, I'm familiar with 2 or 3 of them, and you're in that same classification as far as I'm concerned. So,
appreciate that. It's like, I don't know. It's like one of them things you try to be. Let's say somebody said, "Oh, you're a professional photographer." I'm like, no, I'm just a hobby guy. I don't even know what a professional photographer, what that means. It's just, I mean, I guess if you look down a list, say, have you been paid? Yeah. I mean, have you been published? Yeah. But it just doesn't feel like that, because, like I say, to me, it's just a hobby. It's not my source of income. It's just something that I thoroughly enjoy to do.
Yeah, my wife, she tells everybody I'm a professional wildlife photographer, and no, I'm not, honey. I do this to help Harmony grow. That's really why I do it. Yeah. And I also, the main reason I do it is for the love of it. I mean,
absolutely.
I personally don't have any interest in being published. I really don't. Maybe one day, I take it to that. But for right now, the learning process and kind of going back on what you were talking about with beginners, like I've taught my daughter, my whole family is photographing now. When we go places to photograph, everybody's got a camera. And so, like, people that see us photographing and things like that as a family, they think that is so cool and, and all that. But like my daughter, I got her a camera for her 9th birthday. Or no, it was her Christmas of last year. And I got her a new lens, a 100 to 300 lens for her camera this year for her 10th birthday. And so, like, I've taught her from day one to shoot in manual mode. Learn these 3 settings.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you learn these 3 settings, you can become a decent photographer, because once you learn these 3 settings, it's gonna mull over into being a good woodsman. It's gonna mull over into being understanding lighting and all the things that go into capturing the things that we capture.
Yep,
to me, it's more intriguing to do it as a hunter, because if I'm getting close enough to capture that sharp image, moving, not moving, whatever that may be, turkey, deer, whatever that may be, if I'm getting close enough to do that, I know that I've basically already accomplished harvesting the animal as well. So
absolutely,
I'm very intrigued by being close to them, but also getting to spend that time with them.
Yeah,
like when you're hunting them, you just shoot them, it's over, it's done. But like when you get that close to them and you spend that time with them, it's so much different. It really is.
I enjoy photographing whitetails in the winter, because they're grouped up. and when you spend time with a local herd, and you start to see a hierarchy, and you'll see these deer come in, and you'll know the old doe, and you'll see these spawns, and as soon as she comes in, they move, and it's just, and you can hear their little subtle grunts and their motions, their
Yep.
their quick pawing, and it's so much fun to watch. I had I don't know if it's been 2 or 3 years ago. There was this buck that was coming in. He wasn't the biggest buck, but he was the most aggressive. And this is when we had a lot of snow, so food was becoming pretty scarce. So he was just a bastard. I mean, he would run everything off. I watched him hit an old buck in the side and knock him down flat. And he had blood. He actually had blood running down his tines. And it was the buck he had knocked down had shed both sides. And it was the first picture I had published. It was this buck we called Drops. So I saw him knock him down flat. And I'm like, okay, I had just got that DSD posturing buck. I'm like, I'm going to bring him up here. And I tell you what, the first day I brought that buck up there, he showed up on the side, and his head went back, and within 5 seconds, he had just destroyed my decoy. And I got every bit of that on, I took pictures of everything. It was awesome. But it's just, being able to read that kind of stuff, and, I'd say just being there, and, it's learning the herd, or, learning their mannerisms. It's awesome. I mean, that's what is really exciting about spending time out there and doing that.
Yeah. It's a special time for sure. I think we're ticking on about an hour or so. We'll do a few final short questions, and then we'll close this thing out. We may end up and have another part 2 with Mr. Grizz. There's a lot of fun things we can talk about. I know.
So many fun things.
So real quick, let's just go through these questions real quick. Do you have? Let me drop down to this one. Dream wildlife photography destination, Grizz. If you could go anywhere,
you're gonna shit when I tell you where this is gonna be. It's gonna be so off the wall. And
don't say Alabama, please.
So I thought about this, and and it's like, if I wanted to go shoot elk, I can just go do it. If I want to go, whatever, it's just September, go to the Rocky Mountain National Park and do it. So what I really would like to do, and it's totally personal, is if I could spend some time in Canada or Minnesota or somewhere up in there, and I would love to photograph the American or common loon. I don't know. We have a cabin in Canada. Listen, when you go to bed, you listen to them whistle all night long.
Yeah.
I just would love to have a nice photograph of one of those. So like I say, I don't know how many people would say that'd be their destination, but I thought about it for a long time, and that's what I landed on.
Beautiful, beautiful place up there. I know Banff would be one of my destination places.
You say Alabama?
Banff. No, Banff, Canada.
Oh, Banff? Yeah. It's not burnt down yet, is it?
I don't know. Is it?
That's where all them fires were just south of there this summer.
Oh, really? I didn't even know about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
We were actually in Canada, and the wind had switched up to the northwest. And after about the third day we were there, it was so smoky from the fire. The smoke come from there. It was like a heavy fog. It was crazy. But anyway,
Yeah. Grizz, what's the one piece of gear that you cannot live without?
That's gonna be my tripod. I've got to take it wherever I go. I gotta have it.
Yeah, I know. There's and batteries. There's a lot of people that just won't carry a tripod, but like I do photographing and videoing, and I do a lot of my videoing in 120 frames. The least movement, I mean, you see it. I mean, you breathe on it, you see it.
Yeah.
So you got to have something really steady to do it. But it's a sacrifice, I think, to tote something like that with a big lens and a big tripod. But man, the reward of what you end up capturing at the end of the day is so worth it. So
absolutely, and for me, it's just a comfort thing. Like, I mean, if I have my tripod, I'm confident. I feel confident. if I go out and I forget my tripod, I mean, the fucking world has come to an end. I mean, just like, how am I going to manage without my tripod?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, me. Best time of day to photograph, Grizz? What's your favorite time of day?
well, for turkeys, it's the morning. I would say that most people say the morning, but man, I tell you what, just like deer hunting, taking photographs of deer, I like the evening because I know when I'm done. When that sun
Oh,
sets,
that's a good
I'm done.
point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and all my velvet pictures, they're all evening pictures. I do like to go out in the mornings in the winter. Um, but I mean, if I'm going to prefer time to go shoot, it's definitely going to be the evenings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I would be right there with you on that. I love the afternoon glow.
Yeah. Yep.
Like sunrise, you only get so much time. I feel like you get a lot more time with that
Right.
nice lighting in the evenings.
Especially with the sun, if you got a nice clear day, I mean, in the morning, eventually stuff just gets blown out. It's just too bright. And I mean, I personally prefer to shoot in overcast, and I just like overcast because I know where my settings are going to be, and I'm not worried about say things just getting blown out. And I say in the evening, it's just going to keep. I think you get more colors in the evening, so I just enjoy the evening.
I agree with that. Brandon, you got one more?
So we've talked. Yeah, I got one more. We've talked about your favorite animal to shoot, your most desired animal to shoot. So what is your most challenging, in your opinion, what's the most challenging animal to photograph?
That's hands down the freaking turkey. They are the most frustrating thing I've ever had the misfortune of enjoying.
Yeah.
Damn. And for that reason alone, when you do capture a great photograph, it is like tenfold so much more excitement, and it's just the relief and just like, and I'm gonna be honest, like I say, I really don't get what they call deer fever or buck fever, but I'll tell you what, I get turkey fever every time one comes in. I shit you not. I mean, probably because it's fairly new to me, right? I mean, I've only been doing this, let's say, going on 6 years. I mean, that's all longer I've been doing it, so it's a new thing for me. But man, when I get one to come in, I mean, I'm jacked. I mean, it's just I love it. That's why it's so, and I like them because they're interactive, and that is the most enjoyable part. Is at least you can. So a buddy of mine were talking about, like, if you can, how many times have you been there and you've called a bird, is answered, and you're like, okay, he's coming in. You're excited. He's not coming in. Shit. Oh, he's coming in. I mean, how many times can you get excited and jacked up in just one setting? It's just, that's what I love about it.
Uh-oh.
There, you're back a little bit.
Who left?
There. Yeah, everybody paused for a second.
Yeah. I think we're back now. Is everybody back?
Yeah.
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 Okay. So you said your buddy, you were calling to it or something like that. I can't remember.
Oh, I was just saying, with turkeys, there's multiple times in one sit that you get excited, and you just the highs and the lows of just one sit. I mean, it may be 3 or 4 or 5 different times you think that bird's coming in, but he's not. But you think he is, so you get excited, and then maybe it goes quiet. And then the next thing you know, he's over here, completely in the opposite direction where you thought he was coming. Then he fires off over there, and like, oh God, he's coming in there. So you just get excited so many different times, and that's what's so addictive about it. With whitetails, it's kind of a one and done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Good deal.
Good stuff.
Well, I think we'll wrap it up right here. We're a little bit over an hour, and for some reason the internet, I think, is pooping out somewhere. It's probably mine. But we may end up and do a part 2 to this. Have Mr. Clayton back on with us and talk a little bit more hunting and photography together. I think it's a great topic. It really yields a lot of good information for both. So
absolutely.
But
absolutely.
If y'all are good, I'm good. We'll wrap this up.
I just want to add one thing. If you're a photographer, make sure you're printing your pictures so you can look at them. It's huge. Don't just look at them on a 3x3 screen. Get them printed. Look at them. What they're meant for.
There you go. Well, alrighty, sounds good. I appreciate everybody joining us tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed. Like, subscribe, stay tuned along here with us, and we'll be back next week with another one. We'll see everybody next week.
Appreciate you joining us, Chris.
Yeah, man, I had a blast. Thank you for asking me. This was fun. I enjoyed talking about it.
Yeah, enjoyed it, brother.